I spent 25 years in Connecticut State prison system. And in about 1999, I came across two books, one of which was The Law by Frederick Bastiat, and the other was Free to Choose by Milton Friedman. Those two books led me to call myself a libertarian for more than 20 years. While I was in prison, I did a lot of reading on schisms within the libertarian movement. I myself am an objectivist. I, of course, heard about the disagreements between objectivists and libertarians. I thought that it was all nonsense. I thought it could all just be swept under the bridge, coalitions built, grow the freedom movement. So that was my plan when I exited the prison system in November of 2022. Shortly thereafter, I became the spokesperson for the Libertarian Party of Connecticut with the same goals. And I let it be known that these were my goals to anybody that would listen. Unfortunately, I had also gotten on social media, and I came across things from the Alabama Mises Caucus from the Libertarian Party praising the Unabomber. The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire had posted some things about it was right about the time when some Israeli hostages were released from Hamas, and the LPNH posted, "I wish my girlfriend would look at me the way that these hostages look at Hamas." And I was so grotesque by these things that I reached out to my state party chairman and I said, "Listen, as the spokesperson for your party, I feel that we need to get out ahead of this. I would like to speak on it." He told me, "No, we don't speak on things outside of the state. Those are other affiliates. That's on them." And then there was stuff coming out from the National Mises Caucus, which on a daily basis was just anti-Israel, anti-Israel, anti-Israel. Now, without getting into the wisdom of the Israeli war or anything else, it just seemed a bit strange to me that the Mises Caucus, named for Ludwig von Mises, who fled the Nazis, who was a liberal in the classical sense, and an economist, that they would spend so much time focusing on what a foreign country was doing. So all of this led me to say, I don't want to be a part of this party any longer. So I left the party. And I continue to follow it because I still have plenty of friends within the Libertarian Party. I find national libertarians that aren't part of the party, but for instance, Sheldon Richman, I like very much. Prominent libertarians like Dr. David Friedman, I've had on my show. I've debated him. Very nice guy. So I still like libertarians. It's not as if I want to, kick them all to the curb. But there is a wing of the libertarian movement, and it seems to be the dominant wing that's now anti-immigration. For instance, if you look at their top influencers like Dave Smith or Clint Russell, they don't take a strong pro-choice stance, oftentimes arguing that pro-life is the proper position. And in the recent election, many of them did not even endorse their candidate, Chase Oliver, who, despite his flaws, I thought was a good candidate. A lot of it seemed to be because he was gay. He was attacked. I saw this numerous times. The Mises Caucus endorsed candidate, Michael Rechtenwald, is now on a tear on social media about physically removing Jews and things of that nature. So I clearly cannot call myself a libertarian or be a part of the Libertarian Party. Then there's the issue of anarchy. Again, I have friends that are anarchists, very nice people. I disagree with them about the policies. The reason I disagree is because I'm a capitalist, and I believe that in order to be a capitalist, in order for capitalism to work, we need objective law. What I mean by that is in a given area, in a given geographical space, people need to know what they can do and what they cannot do, what they will be charged for criminally, what the laws of business are. And if you have the ANCAP model of competing defense agencies, you simply cannot have that. And I'll just give you three quick examples. One, IP. There's a big rift within the libertarian movement, as I'm sure all of you know, about intellectual property. So suppose that I hire a defense agency that's very pro-IP, and I want them to protect my intellectual property, as I believe it's my right. But let's say that my friend Jorge over here he is very anti-IP, so he hires a defense agency that's going to protect his right to pirate IP. Lo and behold, I design an excellent water container. I patent it, and I'm selling it. Jorge steals my patent, reverse engineers it and starts to sell it. I file suit. My defense agency is responsible for protecting my rights. His is for protecting his rights. Despite the ANCAP claims that this could be settled by an arbitrator, if you're dealing with something of such a fundamental nature as someone who believes that intellectual property is an absolute right and somebody who believes that protecting IP is an absolute rights violation, you're not going to have a resolution, especially if the ANCAPs are correct in that the competition among these defense agencies will promote the best defense. So now my company is going to defend me, his is going to defend him, and they're going to do it to their best ability. No way to resolve it. Another example that I like to use is one of age of consent when it comes to sex. So suppose I have an 18-year-old son, and I hire a defense agency, and my defense agency says 16 years old is the age of consent. Jorge hires a defense agency, and his defense agency says 18 is the age of consent. My son begins to date Jorge's daughter. My son has sex with Jorge's daughter. Jorge goes to his defense agency and says, my daughter has been raped. I want the perpetrator prosecuted to the full extent of the law. In my vision, my son has done absolutely nothing wrong. He hasn't broken any laws. And my defense agency damn sure better defend him against being abducted and prosecuted by Jorge's. Again, resolving that is not just a matter of, well, we're going to have agreements. Walter Block actually suggested to me in a debate, well, in those cases, you can flip a coin. Then there's the issue of criminal law. As someone who spent 25 years in prison, I can tell you that when I was arrested, I would never have granted my consent to any defense agency to prosecute me. I'm simply not going to do it. And even if I had an agency that had an agreement and they prosecute me, well, I'm going to appeal. And I'm going to keep appealing, and I'm never going to stop. And you're not going to have a final arbiter, which even Murray Rothbard says you need. There has to be an end to the appeals process in order to have resolution. So I can't be an ANCAP. Along came the American Capitalist Party, and they asked me first to be a candidate. And I said, well, I simply cannot do that. I don't have the time. I don't have the money to invest in this sort of endeavor. And they said, well, what's your thoughts on being the vice chairperson? As an objectivist, which means I'm an adherent to the philosophy of Ayn Rand, the party is inspired by Ayn Rand's philosophy. So I said, that I will do. I don't have to stand up for anything I don't believe in, and I can just advocate what I believe. So what do we believe? First and foremost, we believe that that government is there to protect the lives, liberty, and property of its citizens. That nobody has the right to aggress another person. That includes the government. So taxation ultimately would have to be voluntary. We would immediately end the war on drugs, get rid of that. Nobody should be in prison for behavior that is not violating anybody else's rights. Similar with prostitution, similar with gambling. The most important thing, however, that we would do is unleash the power of the individual. By allowing human beings to engage in whatever consensual behavior they want to allow in any behavior that they want to, entrepreneurship will be unleashed. People are not going to have to worry about burdensome regulations. They're not going to have to worry about local zoning. They're not going to have anything standing in their way of creating the best products and providing the best services. Ultimately, the American Capitalist Party is an optimistic one. We're optimistic about America. We believe deeply in the principles of America, and we believe deeply in the future if we can get off this status train that we've been on almost since the beginning of the country with Hamilton's bank and tariffs, but it certainly got much worse with the Civil War, and then, of course, with the New Deal. So we want to unleash the power of individuals, we believe wholeheartedly. Now, this brings us to another difference that we have with the Libertarian Party. Not by no means all, but a lot. And I'll give you an example. I was recently at the Soho Forum debate between Dave Smith and Alex Naresta. And the proposition was something along the lines of immigration restrictions make sense from a libertarian point of view. First of all, I say no way that's true, as did Alex Naresta. But as they went through the entire debate, they didn't address something that is vital to me. And so when I had the chance to ask them questions, I said, you guys have talked a lot about whether or not immigration should be allowed. What you haven't talked about is whether the government, specifically the federal government, is allowed to regulate it. Dave Smith says, I'm here to defend libertarian principles, not the Constitution, so I'll pass. Alex Naresta, to his credit, pulled out the same Constitution that I have in my pocket, and he said, you can scour this thing as much as you want. There's nothing in here that grants the federal government the power to regulate immigration. I don't see how a libertarian can say, under current circumstances, the government should not be bound by the Constitution, because what is the alternative? It's arbitrary power. Lysander Spooner notwithstanding, I think that the Constitution, though flawed, is a great document. I value American history. I value the founding classical liberal ideals. I value the philosophy of John Locke, extending forward to my intellectual forebear, Ayn Rand. So the American Capitalist Party, in short, we believe in individual rights, individual freedom, the right to self-defense. We believe in the right to bear arms, as is contained in the Second Amendment to the Constitution. We believe in the individual right to create and trade. We also believe in a robust national defense. This does not mean nation building. It does not mean going and interfering and overthrowing dictatorships to install puppets. What it means is that if somebody attacks us, they will find out the full force of the United States of America. Mm-hmm. That doesn't rule out, if we know that another country is going to attack us for certain, that we strike that country. Now, my personal take on that is I'm skeptical of any claims coming out of the government. I do think, though, that if we limit the government to its constitutional role, maybe get some amendments in there that necessitate that it protect individual rights, we'd have a much better chance of reining our intelligence agencies in, our law enforcement agencies in, et cetera, et cetera. So my goal here is to convince you to at least take a pamphlet. You can read up on us. You can go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, or you can check out the chairperson of the party, Mark Pellegrino, and my daily show at 12 p.m. noon every weekday Eastern Time on YouTube. It's called The Capitalist Corner. We discuss issues from a pro-capitalist perspective. But my other goal is this. We have a lot in common with libertarians. So even if you choose not to join the American Capitalist Party, I would suggest, if you're a libertarian, you work with us. You can work with us on issues like antitrust laws, prison reform, the war on drugs, opposing minimum wage laws, opposing foreign adventures, things of that nature. There is plenty of room for coalitions. There is plenty of room for us to propel the liberty movement into the future. I believe strongly in liberty. I believe in the future of liberty. And I believe if enough of us are out there making arguments, we can bring people along. And with that said, I will throw it open. If anybody wants to ask any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The gentleman over here, go ahead.
Yeah, so what's the difference between the Capitalist Party here and, say, the Constitutionalist Party?
I don't know much about the Constitutionalist Party to really answer the question. I will say this, is that if you look at a lot of pro-freedom parties or pro-freedom speakers, it's usually about what they're against. They're against government power. They're against violations of the Constitution. Our emphasis is on what we are for. We are for individual freedom because we believe in individual rights. We believe that if people are allowed to be free, they're going to excel. And we look at that as the moral thing to do. So a businessman goes out there and makes a great profit and becomes a millionaire. We think that's to be celebrated. We think that's to be commended, to be praised. We're not going to make excuses for it. We're not going to say, well, liberty is good because it creates the greater benefit to the greater amount of people. What we say is it allows people to flourish. It allows the individual to make the most out of his or her life. So while I can't address specifically the Constitution Party, I can address a broad swath of the liberty movement that is more about the greater good. They will condemn excessive profits, condemn pharmaceutical companies, for instance. I'm not going to do that. I would condemn government interference or government subsidies to pharmaceutical companies or pharmaceutical companies that get in bed with government. But I'm all for pharmaceutical companies having patent protections to create the great medications that help to extend human life, because that's ultimately what it's about: extending human life, extending human flourishing. Who had their hand up first? I didn't see. Okay, go ahead, sir. I'll remember you. Don't worry.
I want to ask the question that I thought he was going to ask.
Okay.
And I believe the Constitution Party is religiously based. They got a Christian thing going on, I believe. But I want to know what distinguishes you from the Libertarian Party.
What distinguishes us from the Libertarian is, I would say the Libertarian Party is called the party of principle, right? Meanwhile, the chairperson of the Libertarian Party this time around virtually endorsed the candidate from another party for pragmatic reasons. Now, you can agree with those pragmatic reasons or you can disagree with those pragmatic reasons, but you endorse the candidate for another party, you're not the party of principle. That's one thing. Two, you will not find our party ever taking anywhere near a anti-abortion stance. You will never see us promoting anarchy. You will never see prominent members of our party touting immigration restrictions. Other than, we want to keep criminals out, obviously, people that are a serious threat to the country. But your regular person that wants to come here, build a life for himself, let him come. So, and also in regard to the robust national defense, I think we're stronger on national defense than libertarians. So my answer in brief is, I would say intellectual consistency distinguishes us. Pro-intellectual property distinguishes us. Pro-immigration across the board strongly distinguishes us in strong national